this out. There's a story that was told about the Greek atomist philosopher Democritus. And the story goes something like this. Democritus had heard someone tell him a story about a man who had been walking on the beach and who had been killed when an eagle dropped a turtle onto his head, knocked him on the skull, and he fell dead. When it was recalled that it had been prophesied of the man that one day he would be killed by a thunderbolt from Zeus, and when it was recalled that the eagle was the bird sacred to Zeus, it was felt to be a fulfillment of the man's destiny. There's an inner and outer accord there. But Democritus didn't buy this. The Greeks at this time were beginning to shift into their scientific period, and the atomist hypothesis was coming in. And Democritus said, that's nonsense. I'll go find out what the real cause of this was. So he dismisses the destiny idea, and he goes out to the beach and he begins to study the habits of eagles. And he found out that they like to pick up turtles, take them up, and drop them onto rocks to shatter them so that they can get at the meat. And apparently the man's head reminded one of them of a rock. And Democritus was fully satisfied with that causal explanation. But is that really all that there is to the picture of the man's destiny? When we live our lives, there is a certain inevitability, in this tradition anyway, about what happens to us. Can it be the case that what happens to us is pure chance, pure accident, as the physicist in his worldview would present it, but rather in the great tradition of the great novelists and Shakespeare and so forth, there is always an accord between the character of the person and what it is that happens to them. There's an inner and outer accord there. So we begin to see, coming out of this tradition, that the synchronicity idea is coming out of this destiny idea tradition. That there's more to what happens to the events and the phenomena in our lives than mere chance or accident. Something else is at work. And it's also worth pointing out that different cultures have completely different ideas of what destiny is. For example, we have the Greek idea of destiny, Moira. Moira, you remember the three fates. One of them one of them hands out the thread of a man's fate, the other spins it, and the other cuts it. And they are the three goddesses who are responsible for fate. But on the other hand, fate to the Greeks is something that even the gods are subject to. Zeus cannot transgress his fate, and it actually refers to an allotment, or it almost has a spatial sense of drawing a boundary. The god cannot, Zeus is the god of the upper world. He cannot come down into the domain of Poseidon. His domain is in the waters, and Hades' domain is in the earth. They are three brothers, and they're assigned by Moira these three domains, and they cannot transgress them. If they do, then you start to get philosophy and tragedy and the Iliad and the Odyssey and all of that. It's about these gods transgressing each other's domains. So even the gods are subject to fate in the Greek tradition. In the Arabic tradition, and it's really consistent with the Jewish and Christian tradition as well, so we use the Arabic word kismet, fate comes from God. That's it. The paradigm of Job is the classic example here. One must submit to one's destiny, and one's destiny comes from the inscrutable will of the Creator, who is Allah, the One. And it's that simple. This can also be translated into the Christian idea of providence. God is the provider. And then we have this other idea. The Northern European idea, and Jung's psychology comes out of this particular idea of destiny above all. The original word is Wirt with a Y, but it became our word weird. Remember the Weird sisters in Macbeth?
Yeah.
They're the three fates, and the word is spelled that way, but if you go back to Beowulf, it's spelled this way, Wirt. And it's etymologically related to the German werden, for to become, the process of becoming. And what this means in the Northern European tradition is that fate comes from within. It is the unfolding of one's unique character. It doesn't come from God. This is why the Christian tradition disintegrated in Northern Europe. It was incompatible with the Northern Germanic world feeling of destiny, which is that destiny is a function of the life of the individual, not of God, not of something artificially imposed upon you. or the Greek idea. So that's the idea of Wirt, and Werden, and Jung's, interestingly enough, Jung's original term for the process of individuation was Menschwerdung. Mensch, the man, the becoming an individual. Menschwerdung. That was his name for individuation. So he's coming right out of this Northern Germanic idea of fate as the unique unfolding of the seed of an individual life. And it first appears in Beowulf. Beowulf goes out to meet his Wirt. He says, "It is now time for me to go meet my Wirt." He goes out to do battle with the dragon, and he and the dragon mutually wipe each other out. That's his Wirt, his unique destiny. So we can find these different ideas of causality, and we also have different ideas of destiny. And we see that Jung's individuation process comes out of the Wirt idea, and the synchronicity idea is a further development of the idea of destiny generally. And so that's where the idea is coming from, and that's why Joseph Campbell used to always say, you remember he was famous for the statement of following your bliss?
Yeah.
They would say, if you follow your bliss, and this means just finding what it is that fascinates you as an individual and sticking with it and pursuing it, despite what resistances you meet from society or from the outer world, if you follow that, you will begin to, it is almost as though, he says, you get onto a track almost that was preset for you, and you are carried along by life. And you receive what he calls magical aid. People appear in your life at just the right time. With somebody knows somebody else who can get you in here, you know. If you are following your own path and not someone else's. If you follow someone else's, he says, you will experience exactly the opposite. It will be frustration after frustration after frustration. Life will not yield because you're not on the path that is consistent with what your destiny has in mind for you as an individual. But you do get on that path if you just follow what it is that you are interested in, because that is what the soul wants. And so his idea of the hero journey comes out of all this, his meditation on this Jungian vision. And synchronicities, in Campbell's paradigm here, are manifestations that you are on the right path, that the cosmos is echoing back at you what it has in mind for you. Yes?
Now, when you run into this person that helps you out, is that considered a synchronicity?
It could be interpreted as such, yes. He calls it magical aid, as we'll see when we do the hero's journey. It's magical aid. And so that's really Jung's last big idea of the synchronicity principle, and I think it's a darn good one. So what I'd like to do now is start leaving Jung behind, and before getting into Campbell, I'd like to take a brief detour into the Far East. We won't spend much time there. Jung certainly didn't. And the individual which I would like to discuss for the rest of tonight and for the next session is Heinrich Zimmer. And there's a picture of Heinrich in here. I'll pass this around. There's pictures of him and so forth, just to play around with. And he was a very great Indologist. He specialized in the study of Hindu mythology and culture. And he was born in 1890 on December 6th in Greifswald. I don't know the birth time, and I don't have the birth chart. His father, I'm sorry?
He was born 1890.
1890, December 6th, in Greifswald, which is in Germany somewhere. Greifwald. It means Griffin's Wood, the wood of the griffin. And he went through the classical education, and he comes out of this matrix of intense German scholarship. The Germans were really the best scholars in the world at this time. They practically invented scholarship out of the great Lutheran Protestant tradition of love for the text, you know. So he comes out of that matrix. His father was a very great, also named Heinrich Zimmer, was a very great Celtic scholar. His father actually committed suicide in 1910, just before World War I opened up. And Zimmer said, that freed me from having to deal with an Oedipus complex with respect to him, because his shadow in the learned world at that time was so enormous that I felt that I would never have been able to find my own